में आप लोगों ने भी हेल्प की थी हमारी। तो एट द एंड हमने फाइल सेविंग एंड शेयरिंग के फीचर्स देखे थे। सो दिस वाज ऑल फ्रॉम द डे वन। और आज हम डिज़ाइनिंग एसेंशियल्स देखेंगे। दिस इज़ आवर एजेंडा टुडे। वी विल बी वर्किंग विद कलर्स एंड ग्रेडियंट्स। हमने लास्ट वर्कशॉप में जो है इतने डेप्थ में हम नहीं गए थे कि हमें कलर्स कौन से कब यूज़ करने हैं, कौन से यूज़ नहीं करने, एंड ग्रेडियंट्स को भी हम इन डेप्थ देखेंगे। हम टाइपोग्राफी बेसिक्स देखेंगे। बेसिकली हमें फ़ॉन्ट कौन सा चूज़ करना है, हमें टेक्स्ट की साइज़ क्या चूज़ करनी है, इवन हमें टेक्स्ट किस तरह से प्लेस करना है। आफ्टर दैट वी विल कवर अलाइनमेंट्स एंड ग्रिड्स। हमें डिफरेंट स्क्रीन्स पे किस तरह की अलाइनमेंट रखनी है, वेदर इट बी हॉरिजॉन्टल और वर्टिकल अलाइनमेंट, हमें स्पेसिंग किस तरह से देनी है एलिमेंट्स को। एंड एट द एंड वी विल सी हाउ टू इम्पोर्ट and edit images. So when we cover all this, at the end obviously we will going to be enhancing what we designed our previous post, और हम इन सब चीज़ों का यूज़ करके उसको और बेहतर बनाएंगे. So let's kick off by creating our uh, second file for the bootcamp. Let's name it workshop 2. All right. First of all, let's talk about working with colors and gradients. So in the last session where I designed a post, I will just show you that as well. Here it is. All right, so in the last session, I covered, we all designed this post using shapes, font, some effects, and colors. All right, so now, first of all, let's talk about colors. हमने colors यहाँ पर किस तरह से apply किए हैं. यहाँ पर आप देख सकते हैं we have used shades of blue almost on everything. The background हमने shapes के ऊपर भी blue color apply किया है. The main subject that is figma.com, हमने वहाँ पर भी blue का gradient apply किया है, और बाकी जो text हैं हमने we have kept it black. Now what we have to do is go in depth कि हमें colors किस तरह से pick करने होते हैं. लास्ट सेशन में तो हमें जो पसंद आया आप लोगों से मैंने सजेशंस ली कि हम इस शेप का कलर क्या रखूं, मैं फॉन्ट का कलर क्या रखूं. अब हम देखेंगे कि हमने कलर्स चूज़ क्यों किए और इसको और बेटर हम किस तरह से बना सकते हैं, या अगर ये बेटर है ऑलरेडी तो क्यों है. वी व्हाट यूज़ इज़ कॉल्ड कलर कॉन्ट्रास्ट. हम जब भी किसी चीज़ का कलर यूज़ करते हैं इन डिज़ाइनिंग वी मस्ट चेक द कॉन्ट्रास्ट. जब बिकॉज बिफोर यू आर बिगिनर यू डोंट नो दीज एसेंशियल्स. जब आप आगे इसको चीज़ प्रैक्टिस करते जाएंगे तो आपको बार बार से चेक करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. लेट्स से हमें कॉन्ट्रास्ट देखना है इस द वेट इज़ ओवर और विद द बैकग्राउंड कि ये बैकग्राउंड से कितना स्टैंड आउट हो रहा है. इसके लिए मैं आपको एक टूल बताता हूँ. लेट मी शेयर यू द स्क्रीन. ऑलराइट, सो इसके लिए मैं आपको एक वेबसाइट सजेस्ट करता हूँ दैट इज़ coolers.co. यहाँ पर आप कलर कॉन्ट्रास्ट देख सकते हैं. सो लेट्स से आई वांट टू सी इफ the weight is over is standing out from the background. What I can do is just select the color of the text and then add it up in the text color field, and then in the background I will choose a frame, and by this we can get the background color. I will just copy this up and paste it on the background. So See, I'm getting a contrast of 12.92. That is considered super. And I will tell you from my experience, you can go anywhere from 10 to 16. That is like you can say a really good contrast. The maximum contrast you can get is 21. But I do not recommend using 21 because let's say you create a frame for a mobile phone, all right? And this is all white, and now you are writing over a text, let's say. Now the contrast of this is 21. So this is pure black, the 000 hex code, and the background is pure white. So this has a contrast of 21. And why do I not recommend it? Also, professionals do not recommend this, and the latest design trends is because of too much contrast can cause eye strain. हमारी आंखें अगर ज़्यादा कॉन्ट्रास्ट वाली चीज़ें देखती हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल अगर कोई एक बुक रीड कर रहा है थ्रू अ फोन, सो अगर हम उसका बैकग्राउंड जो है वाइट रहेंगे और उसके ऊपर टेक्स्ट ब्लैक, या अगर हम बैकग्राउंड ही फुल ब्लैक रख लेते हैं और टेक्स्ट हम फुल वाइट रख लेते हैं, अगर हम ज़्यादा देर के लिए इस रीड आउट करेंगे तो क्या होगा, आई स्ट्रेन होगा, क्योंकि ज़्यादा कॉन्ट्रास्ट हमारी आइज़ के लिए अच्छा नहीं है. सो व्हाट वी ट्राई टू अचीव इज एनीवेयर बिटवीन, लेट्स से अगर हम टेक्स्ट कलर को थोड़ा लाइट कर लेते हैं और बैकग्राउंड को थोड़ा डार्क कर लेते हैं, वी कैन सी 10. दिस इज अ गुड कॉन्ट्रास्ट, बट आई वुड से between 10 to 16 everything is good. See, this is 16, all right. This is a contrast we get if we use this colors. Let's say we copy this, put it on the background, and we use this for the text color. Now it doesn't look a lot different from what we achieved before. The background looks a little bit more darker, but nonetheless it's not a very big difference. But what will this do अगर आप reading कर रहे हैं, या mainly you are designing for users, अगर आपके users आपकी design देख रहे हैं काफ़ी देर के लिए, तो उनको आई स्ट्रेन नहीं होगा. You have to design in such a way कि आप users को ज़्यादा देर के लिए अपने ऐप या अपने डिज़ाइन के ऊपर इंगेज रखें. अगर ज़्यादा कॉन्ट्रास्ट की वजह से उनको प्रॉब्लम फेस हो रही है आपकी डिज़ाइंस रीड आउट करने में, दे विल जस्ट क्लोज द थिंग एंड दे विल मूव ऑन. सो इट इज़ गुड प्रैक्टिस कि अगर आप कॉन्ट्रास्ट यूज़ करते हैं एनीवेयर फ्रॉम 10 to 16, but if you use too much contrast it can cause eye strain. But what about if we use a little contrast? Let's talk about if we go below 10. See, this is also considered good, but if we show you by this, let's use this contrast. And all right, so this is also considered on the website as good, but although it doesn't give you enough contrast to make the heading stand out. And if you use this contrast for the heading, and we have to make the paragraph or the subheading a little bit less distracting, we used to make it a lighter. Now it does reduce the contrast with respect to the background a lot. So at the end, this doesn't look good. Although it is readable, but it will make the user to focus more on the words and on the text. And if we use like poor contrast, see here, a very worst we can go is you can preview your contrast here as well. The background is dark and the text is also dark. It's not really standing out. So the best thing is to use contrast anywhere between 10 to 16, and you can check it on the Coolers website. Okay, now this was all about the color contrast. Now All right, so now we will talk about how many colors you should use in a design. Well, this does vary from design to design. The colors can go anywhere from 3 to 5. And when we consider the colors, we are only talking about accent colors. Right now, because we are just using the basics, we are understanding the basics. I do not want you to go through the UI design yet, but I will show you examples in a bit. Okay, I'm really sorry. My microphone was off. ओके सो आई वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट कलर्स कि हमें कलर्स कितने चूज़ करने चाहिए अपनी डिज़ाइंस में और इट कैन वेरी फ्रॉम लाइक 3 कलर्स to 5 कलर्स सो आप लोग मुझे इस वेबसाइट से देख के बता सकते हैं कि राइट नाउ हाउ मेनी कलर्स डू यू सी मुझे इन कॉल मैसेजेस पे अगर आप बता दें just look at this section the top header section and don't look at these images yet just at the top section. Okay. Black, okay, gray, black, white, and do you not see any color pop out a lot, like a really bright color that is not gray or black? Okay, it says pink. Okay, all right, so all right, that's good. So in total, you can see the white as background, the black as text, and we see gray for these things. And the most prominent color here is this, the on the search button, that is pink. You also see black at the login button. So how many colors can you like identify? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5. All right, so this uses 5 colors, but we do not have to just count the colors because colors can be so much. For example, you will have a text color that says black. You will have a, let's say, a subheading color that will be lighter. You will have a paragraph color that will be even lighter. So colors can be a lot of numbers, but we mainly focus on the main colors. That also we have to use a rule that is called the 60, 30, and 10 rule. I will quickly make a frame. So So what does the 60, 30, and 10 rule says is if we, first of all, see a primary color that has to be used the most. I have chosen this almost white. Okay, I just keep it white. And then you have something like a secondary color that is the, used the less, 30%. I keep it this. And then your accent color that is used the least, but only for main things. Let's say I keep it pink. Okay. So this here you can see our primary color is used 60%. This thing will be used 30%, and our accent color that will be only used for buttons or special cases will be only used for 10%. And if you see this terminology, this is also followed up on this website. This website is also really popular, so it uses this rule. You can see the background is all white, the most used color, that is 60%, and the text color, that is black, it has been following up on the screen as 30%. And only this button little here, that is the accent color, is 10% off on the design. If we open up any design, you can see it follows this consistent throughout. Although we do not find the accent color a lot, but if we go on to Behance, can you identify what is the accent color on Behance? And can you tell me in call messages? Blue, right? That's great. So the accent color on Behance is blue. Obviously, you can see this is getting, a really highlighted, while the primary color is white as the background, and the secondary color for the text is set to black. And here you can see they have really encouraged the accent color to be used more. Even if we open up a design, you can see on the appreciate button, the accent color is used on the follow button. And if you go down, you can see the accent color is really making the design pop out. But also it is not used a lot, so it doesn't look that bad. So this is the rule that we have to follow up. And all right, so now that we have talked about colors, let's talk a little about gradients as well. As in the last post that we designed here, use gradient on the figma.com, that is our subject. So one more thing I have to cover is the usage of colors. Let's see, especially for the accent color. Let's say if you want to use something that pops out, but also we don't have to add so much contrast. For example, green. This color really pops out, but also if you check in the contrast, it adds a lot of contrast. But if we use the same green and just make it a subtly darker, it makes a big difference in the contrast strategy and does make the design automatically better. So this is not something you have to look through a lot. If you like some color, let's say, don't, it's just a small trick. Let's say you like this can. So you don't have to always go up as high like this. You can just drag the slider down and use a little darker shade of the color you like. This is a good practice that you can follow up in your UI designs. I'll just look for questions if anyone has. All right. And coming back to our gradients, all right. Now, here, as you can see, we have used this blue gradient. You can see our first point is this lighter blue, and our second point is a little darker blue. Now, let me tell you about how do we choose gradient colors. See, if you choose gradient colors like this, and I choose something like this is not a really good practice. Why? Because honestly, it looks it doesn't blends well. You have to choose colors that blends together well. If you take a look in center, it grays it out. It is not as bright and colorful as the other two colors at the end of this rectangle. Now, how do we choose gradients? It's really simple. The most efficient trick, and you can use it up on any of your design, is basically if you select any color, let's say this blue color, and you want to choose the second color, you can choose adjacent of that color. If I chose if I chose this blue color as a first stop, then I can use a second color adjacent to that color. That means I can go a little to the right, that would work fine, and a little to the left, that would also work fine. But if I go way too far, let's say green, now you can see in the center it kinds of doesn't blend well, and it grays the color out. It reduces the saturation and the brightness that we get on the ends of each side. So this is a really fast trick for choosing gradients, but in some cases it can really work for other colors. Like I have gone really to the right side, and pink is also working fine, purple is also working fine. But again, if I go to red, then it doesn't work fine. So you have to be really careful. You can move a little to the right and a little to the left, but don't go too far. Okay. And also what you can do is choose the brightness. You can choose less brightness if you're using the same gradient style, or darker brightness. That would work fine. But if you want to reduce the saturation, it won't look good. Also, you have to keep in mind if you are using gradients for button. For example, I make this small button. Okay, let me change the styling off. Let's say this is a button that we designed. We can group this and move it around. Right now you can see it contrasts. Contrast is really good. It is visible from afar. If you zoom it out and if you zoom in, it does look good. But if you choose gradients that are lighter, let's say if you choose this, the gradient is still present, but now if you zoom it out, the contrast is all lost. So as you keep care of the contrast with just colors, you have also to keep care with the gradients as well. Uh, One more thing, आप अगर gradients use कर रहे हैं, so what you can do is add more gradients by moving this slider and clicking anywhere in between. Or what you can do is just click at this plus button and add more gradients to your style, and you can change the colors as well. Remember to use the same rule I said. This is just to go a little left, a little to the right, and I can increase the contrast by changing the button color to something darker. Now it does stand out, the button stands out and looks really good. Now we have covered our color psychology thing. One more thing I would like to say is ask from you guys. I would give two scenarios where I have to design for a dating app and for an environmental app. So these two are the apps, and I have chosen this color. Let's say for the dating app, I have chosen this blue, and for the environmental app, I have chosen this pink. What do you guys think? Does have I chosen the colors right for each of these apps? मुझे comments in call messages पे बताइएगा. All right. So most of you are saying no. All right. Uh, reverse it. Okay. अगर मैं इन दोनों को reverse कर देता हूँ, let's say I reversed it, तो wait, I don't think I reversed it. My bad. Okay. अगर मैं इन दोनों को रिवर्स कर देता हूँ, so what do you think now? कि अभी सही लग रहा है? अच्छा, आप लोग मुझे बताएं, अगर हम नेचर के हिसाब से देखें, व्हाट कलर डू यू सी द मोस्ट नेचर के हिसाब से? आप लोग मुझे इन कॉल मैसेज पे बताएं। ग्रीन, 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 दैट्स ग्रेट। सो व्हाई शुडंट आई यूज ग्रीन फॉर द environmental app? Also, I can use brown as well for the text, for the text and styles. I can use brown as well. And for the dating app, pink works fine. Red would also work fine. Now, why do you guys thought of these colors? It's just because of the human psychology and how colors connect with our emotions. We immediately thought of pink and red for a dating app because it is connected to our heart and relationships and our emotions. And while for an environmental app, हमने डायरेक्टली हमने ग्रीन का सोचा बिकॉज नेचर में ऑब्वियसली हम दरख्त हर जगह देखते हैं, और ब्राउन भी हम इसके साथ मैचअप कर सकते हैं। तो जब भी हम डिज़ाइंस बनाते हैं, लेट्स से मैं किसी कैंपेन के लिए डिज़ाइन बना रहा हूँ फॉर environmental ऐप, मैं कोशिश करूँगा आई यूज़ ग्रीन कलर मोर एंड मेक इट मोर स्टैंड आउट, ताकि वो जो मेरा मैसेज है उसको कन्वे कर सके। If I would use something like a pink on an environmental app, it would not look good because colors is the first thing. Images and colors are the first thing that the human eye sees, and the second are the text they see. So you have to make sure कि आप colors सही तरीके से choose करें, and also आप सही जगह पे use करें। सो आई वुड से कि हमने कलर्स के बारे में ऑलमोस्ट हर चीज़ कवर कर ली होगी। नाउ लेट्स मूव ऑन टू द टाइपोग्राफी सेक्शन। ऑलराइट, सो हमने लास्ट सेशन में देखा था कि हम किस तरह से पोस्ट डिज़ाइन कर रहे थे। वी एडिड 4 text in total. The wait is over. Introducing figma.com, and we are live. We didn't focus much on choosing the font, also on choosing the weight, that is the how bold the font is. Also, we focused on the size. We made the subject look bigger. हमने subject को बड़ा बनाया ताकि वो stand out करे, और हमने जो subject के साथ जो text था उसको हमने size उसकी reduce की ताकि हमारी hierarchy ठीक रहे। Now let's talk about in detail what is hierarchy. All right, so I have simplified this very much for you guys to understand what is hierarchy. Basically, हम जब भी design करते हैं, we have to make our subject or what is the most important thing to stand out. That is our heading. You have seen newspaper, or let's say अगर आप किसी website पर भी visit करते हैं, I would share the screen with you. All right. So I will share this screen with you. आपने for example किसी website पे visit किया. Now you can see the most standing out thing is this: discover the world's top designers. That is our heading, and you can see it is the biggest in size. And here you can see the subheading or the paragraph that is not as big as the heading, but does make it out so you can read it. And then you go and take a look at the other text items. They are mostly the same size and not really that much standing out. But here, if you take a look at the top section, you can see the login button is in the black and is trying to stand out. It's making it stand out. So in text hierarchy, we have to focus on choosing the right size. अगर हमने heading की size small लगती है और हम paragraph को same height में रख रहे हैं, let's say the world is doing better. Let's say this is the heading for our newspaper. हम इसको ऐसे बना देते हैं. Alright, so let's say हमारे पास जो हेडिंग थी वो ये थी द वर्ल्ड इज डूइंग बेटर एंड ये जो हमारे पास टेक्स्ट है ये हमारे पास पैराग्राफ है. नाउ व्हाट इट इज डूइंग इज इट्स नॉट एडिंग अ हायरार्की. जो यूजर होगा जब इस चीज को रीड आउट करेगा ही वुड बी कंफ्यूज्ड. ही वुड नॉट सी कि मुझे रीड आउट क्या करना है, क्योंकि बोथ ऑफ दीज टेक्स्ट आर लार्जर. और जब यूज़र जो है वो बहुत ज़्यादा डेटा इन वन गो में अगर देखेगा तो मोस्ट ऑफ द यूजर्स विल स्किप इट. सो व्हाट डिज़ाइनर्स डू टू मेक देम एंगेज्ड इज बेसिकली वो जो पैराग्राफ साइजेस हैं उनको रिड्यूस करते हैं फ्रॉम द यू कैन से फ्रॉम द हेडिंग, ताकि जो हेडिंग है वो स्टैंड आउट करे, बिकॉज दिस इज heading is the only thing that have to be stand out. And here you can see I have fixed the hierarchy. Now it is looking much better. Even if you take a look up from afar, the user only has to focus on the little important thing, that is the heading, and it is really standing out. और अगर हम वेबसाइट्स पे देखें सो ये चीज़ हर जगह फॉलो हुई हुई है. जैसे द वर्ल्ड्स बेस्ट क्रिएटर, यहाँ पर भी हेडिंग हमारी जो है वो बड़ी है. And if you look at Google products, हम Google की वेबसाइट्स पे देखें, you can see the headings are big. Now let's move on to readability. Now readability is dependent on choosing the right font style. Basically, we get tons of font style. You see serif. I'll just show you. Sans serif. You see, you can get decorative or cursive fonts. All right. These are the main categories for the fonts. Well, serif fonts are something you are familiar with. The most common font is Times New Roman. This is a serif font. Why we call it a serif font? Because ends of each letter, as you can see, the I, it ends with this slab at the bottom, you can see. So this is the how you recognize a serif font. The ends of each letter are connected to a slab, a flat slab. While a sans serif font doesn't have those slabs, they just end at a cut. And while decorative or cursive fonts look like this, there are tons of options you can choose from. Now, each of these fonts represent different things. Serif font is more of a premium and old money style, while sans serif is focused on to modernism and more user friendly, looks more appealing. While decorative and cursive are just personal preferences and depends on the brands that has them. Here, as you can see, I would suggest not I would suggest, but the best practices follow is to use only 2 to 3 fonts max. This is the max number of fonts you should use in your designs, because if you use any more than that, it will look really awful. I would suggest to use one or two, that is good, but to avoid using three fonts, because if we take a look at top websites, for example, Google itself, you can see, I think I didn't show you the Figma screen to make you understand this. All right, so I showed you this difference between serif and sans serif font. यहाँ पर आप देख सकते हैं serif fonts basically they end with a slab like this, and sans serif they just cut it out at the end, and they are for more modern websites and designs, while decorative and cursive fonts looks something like this. So, and yes, you only have to use maximum of 2 to 3 fonts. अगर हम top websites पे देखें जिस तरह से Google है हमारे पास, यहाँ पर आप देख सकते हैं कि they have only used one single font, that is their own product sense. If you scroll down, you won't find another font. So this is a good practice. And if you take a look at Behance, you may think there are a lot of fonts going on. First of all, let's take a look at this font. Although they all are from the same family, this uses the Acumen Pro Wide for the headings. But if you take a look at the other font we find here, it also uses Acumen Pro, but it is not wide. It is not as spread out. So they had to make the heading more stand out. That's why they use a different variant. And if you take a look at Dribble, it uses two completely different fonts. Here we can take a look. For the heading, they have used serif font. You can see source serif 4. By the way, you can access this developer options by pressing F12. And for the paragraph and other text, they have used Helvetica. So these were some of the most well-built websites. They have used 1 to 2 fonts, and you won't find more than that on any of these. And honestly speaking, I haven't found a website that uses 3 fonts in a while. So I would just recommend using 2 at max. And this is not just only for websites, also for post designs, like we designed this post. You would see we have only used one single font, but we could have also gone to 2, that we will redesign this post at the end. And the last thing I would like to cover is choosing the right size, and of course the boldness. हम size और boldness किस तरह से choose करते हैं is by saying कि हम किस चीज़ के ऊपर डिज़ाइन कर रहे हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल अगर हम फ़ोन के लिए डिज़ाइन कर रहे हैं, दैट इज़ वी कैन से iPhone 13. All right. So if I want to design for a phone and I write, let's say this is a heading. Let's say this is our heading, and we also add a paragraph. And the rule I told you about is to not use the same font or same styling for both the heading and paragraph. That's why I'm changing the font for the paragraph. So I would use Google Sans and reduce the size as well to follow the hierarchy practice. Now, this is a phone screen. अगर मैं इसको zoom out कर लूँ, this is how it would look like on our phone mostly. The heading is well visible. The paragraph is also well visible. But if I go lower than that to 16, it is still will be visible. But anything less than that, then the user will have to really focus on to the screen. Now, the best and good practice is to use sizes that the user does not have to focus too much on. If we, let's say, use 10, the user will have to go all the way into their phone and poke the eye into the screen just to read this is our paragraph. But also, if you use it too big, now it's taking up too much screen real estate. Like it's taking up too much. Like if my paragraph is big enough, I can just complete the whole page with our paragraph. I can't add other stuff. For example, if I want to add a button or add an image, I won't have the space to add that. So we have to make sure we use the sizes properly. They do not have to be really big, and they also do not have to be really small. And for phone devices, I would suggest you can use anywhere from 16 pixels for paragraphs, and you can use for headings maximum of 40 pixels. All right. Now, one more thing I have to cover is, why did I recommend you using even number of heights? Why not, let's say, 63? Now, ये भी बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ है कि हम डिज़ाइनिंग में मोस्ट ऑफ द हम डिज़ाइंस जो बनाते हैं उसमें हम इवन नंबर्स क्यों चूज़ करते हैं? Why we didn't use let's say 264 for this, और पैराग्राफ के लिए हमने 17 क्यों नहीं चूज़ किया? Well, this is also a more technical reason why we don't use odd numbers. Because अगर आप कोई भी screen sizes देखें, let's say iPhone 13, you see the number of pixels here 390 by 844. So the number of pixels are even. Even अगर आप desktop की sizes देखें, let's say I add a frame for desktop, and you can see all of the frames here. Mostly you see there are even number of pixels. तो हम अपनी designs को, ताकि वो accessible हो most of screens के लिए, we use even number of pixels, even number of sizes. अच्छा, मैं कोशिश करूँगा जो भी चीज़ यहाँ पर बेस्ट प्रैक्टिस की हो वो मैं राइट डाउन कर लूँ, ताकि ये फाइल आप लोगों से शेयर्ड है तो आप इसे इजीली एक्सेस कर सकें. So I would say that is pretty much for typography. There are more things, like you can change the spacing between the items. अगर आप यहाँ पर letter spacing के option के ऊपर जाते हैं, you can change it, you can set it to 0, you can change any value, और आप यहाँ पर जो है line height भी set कर सकते हैं. That means के paragraph एक दूसरे से कितने दूर है. Let's say I set it to 200. So we have all of these functionality. We can set it to auto as well. So that is pretty much for the typography. Now let's talk about alignments and grid. Alignments and grid are really important in UI UX design. I would show you, let's say, for this application, for this mobile app screen. So हम Figma में layout grid किस तरह से add कर सकते हैं is by scrolling down on the right tab menu, and here you can see you get the option for layout grid. यहाँ से हम we have options to add either grid, columns and rows. I would suggest, and what most designers use is columns. ठीक है, और columns भी आपको इसमें और options मिल जाते हैं customization के. You can set the count of the columns to maximum 12. You can increase it if you want to, and a minimum of 1. Let's say we keep it to 10. Maybe 10 is a bit more. Let's keep it at 6. Okay. You can change the highlight color of that. Let's keep it at blue. And you can change the type of it. Let's say it stretches. That means it will have no bleeding or no edge spacing when it is set to stretch. When you set it to center, it will just make those center, and you have specific width for each of these uh, columns. You can either set it to left and right, but I would suggest, and what most designers use, is stretch, and they add a margin at the edges of the screen. So this way, when we want to use a consistent, when we want to design a consistent UI, we can just align it to the grid. It snaps easily onto the grid, and you can see it exactly 20 pixels away, like we set in here. You can also change the position in between these columns by adjusting the gutter value. I would, let's say, keep it 10. All right. So this is, we can also adjust, let's say, our button variations like this. If we want to adjust the image, we can also customize like this. You get tons of visibility when you use layouts and grids. Now, why do we use this is because of to have a consistent UI. We don't want users to have different spacing and alignments for each of these design. So you can see the spacing between these two will be 10. And if you follow up this design somewhere else on the screen, because obviously screen will be, there will be a lot of section to scroll to. If you follow up this design somewhere else, you will also find the same number of spacing elsewhere. So this is a really good practice if you want to follow up for your UI design. Another reason why we use the alignments is to structure, obviously we have to structure our UI design. If you want to center align it, we can see the distance and the spacing between the edges. If you want to left align it, we get this consistent UI. If you use heading somewhere else, let's say this is heading 2, we can again align it to the left with same amount of spacing each time. And I would say that is pretty much for the alignment and grids section. You can, obviously, you have the freedom to customize your design according to that. And also you can change the values yourself with the keyboard shortcuts shift and the up arrow key. You can choose between the distance, how much distance do you want. All right, so let's see, we have covered till yet working with colors and gradients. We have worked with typography basics. We have also learned the alignments and grids. Now let's talk about importing and editing images. Now, the last post that we designed didn't have any images. Now, how do we import images? Well, there are a lot of ways you can import images in your design. I would suggest just use drag and drop, but if you do not want this, you can just copy and paste. Let's say you go to Yandex. Now, this is a really cool website. You can use this for images. It will give you exact images of how you like. Let's say you want an image of a BMW. Let's see if I want to import this image. You can easily copy this image and paste it here. Now keep in mind, when you paste images into Figma, it limits the size. So you can add up to like 4K quality, but not more than that. So this is a simple way. Other way is you can obviously save this image somewhere, and you can simply drag and drop into Figma. Or what you can do is click here and file. You can choose a place image. It will open the window to choose image from your computer. So adding, that's how you add images. And let's see if I want to add image on this. Guys, आप लोग मुझे बताएं messages में कि मैं इस post के ऊपर कौन सी image add कर सकता हूँ. Like this is for a website. Okay. A cartoonic figure of wow expressions. Any Figma logo maybe. Puzzles maybe. All right. So let's try to add a Figma logo. I will quickly look up on the internet and let's say I will add this Figma logo. All right. I can add it up on this post. Make sure आप जो भी डिज़ाइन कर रहे हैं अगर आप images import करते हैं most of the time they get placed outside और even if आप इसको डिज़ाइन अपने फ्रेम के ऊपर ऐड ऑन करते हैं so it doesn't get add on और जब आप डिज़ाइन एक्सपोर्ट करते हैं so फिर वो चीज़ें एक्सपोर्ट नहीं होती so make sure कि आप अगर कोई चीज़ एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं it is in the frame you design. So I have added the Figma logo but using the color psychology जो मैंने समझाई थी it is not really standing out blending with the background the contrast is not high enough. If you take a look Figma के लोगों में हमारे पास blue add on हो रहा है. So what do you think I should do to fix this issue? Black for background. अच्छा और कोई suggestions? You can see the logo is not standing out from the background. Gray background. Dark blue. अच्छा अगर मैं background color जो है mostly आप लोग dark suggest कर रहे हैं. If I make it darker फिर logo बहुत stand out कर रहा है but now you can see the text is almost not visible. Now how do I fix that? Change the text color. Okay, let's change the text color. मैं कंट्रोल और क्लिक से कंट्रोल शिफ्ट क्लिक से टेक्स्ट जो विजिबल नहीं है उन्हें सिलेक्ट कर देता हूँ और I would make it lighter because that's how you achieve a good contrast. Now our text is visible but I think the main subject is also looking a bit darker and not standing out. What gradient shade should I use now? Any light color? Okay, let's choose the make the color brighter. Now it does make it stand out, or we can play with the shades of our logo. Let's change the color. Also, you can use this eyedropper tool if you want to select color from the frame. This is the eyedropper tool. You can click on this and you can choose color like this or the second color. Okay, this is really standing out. And for the shapes, I said shapes should be very subtle. The contrast should be like below 3 on the. So what should I change this color to? All right. So both of these are different colors. What we can achieve by is we have to reduce the contrast. Obviously, shapes have to be really subtle. We have to check the background. The brightness is very low. It is a dark shade of blue, and our shapes are really bright. To make the contrast really go down, we can reduce the brightness of the shapes as well. और सेकंड शेप के लिए भी हम कर लेते हैं. We can reduce the brightness like this. Now our main focus is all standing on the Figma.com, but I think the alignment and spacing is not really good. Like you can see the logo and then introducing Figma.com. We are live. This thing is way too far. This thing is way too up, and this is just in between. And this is also not aligned in center. Now, how do I fix the alignment? Do you guys have any suggestions? Place the logo to top left. Okay, if we place the logo to the top left, and yeah, it does make it look better. But and if we adjust, all right. So now our subject is being most focused the most, but how do we convey it as a website? We have to make this VR live also more focused. So we have to make this more stand out as well. And also since this is connected to our subject, Figma.com is a site link and VR live is a message that says the website is now live. These two things are connected. So we can also place them together. And the Figma logo is as well for the website, but we also do not want everything to be together. We can try to adjust around the things. Maybe top left does look work fine. We can view the spacing by holding the Alt key. And all right. So what do you guys think? How does this look like now? Any more images or anything more I should add to make this better? Change the Figma.com color. Okay. Adding a cartoonic figure would work. Okay, a cartoonic figure. Let me search for it. Okay, maybe change square color shape because two different colors are on the edges. Maybe let's change the color of this. How about we match this with the logo? And since the Figma logo is more colorful, if we change the colors of these? What do you think, guys? या इसकी हम अगर ब्राइटनेस कम करते हैं, think color should be more subtle. Okay. Previous one was eye catching. अच्छा, मतलब जो ब्राइट कलर था वो ज्यादा आई कैचिंग था. पर्पल एंड पिंक, आई थिंक. ओके, हम देख लेते हैं इसको. अच्छा, आई ड्रॉपर अगर आपको क्विकली करना है तो यू डोंट हैव टू गो ओवर दिस कलर एंड क्लिक ऑन दिस एवरी टाइम. You can just click on the eye icon, sorry, the eye button on your keyboard, and you quickly get this eyedropper tool. Let's set it to like this. Okay, now you can see the shapes are really standing out, but it looks like this is pushing this way too much. How about we move this a little bit? Now it does look good though. Can the text color contain more than two colors? Yes, we can customize the text with gradients. Although this is for a post, we haven't reached to user interface design yet. But I mean, websites or mobile apps have text headings that have gradients in them. But we have to make sure they are subtle and not overwhelming. As let's say if we use make the gradient way too much. अगर हम इसका gradient ऐसे इस तरह का यूज करते हैं. Now you can see it is looking way too much, overwhelming. The color is green and it goes over to orange and reddish type, and it also doesn't follow the rule of choosing the adjacent color to besides each other. So we can use subtle gradients like this for text or buttons. So we are good with it. Figma.com should contain all colors of Figma logo. अच्छा, वैसे ये चीज जो है वायलेट कर सकती है क्योंकि फॉर अ लोगो दैट इज यू नो मार्क, you can't change the logo, but for हम अगर हम डिजाइनिंग कर रहे हैं and we follow the colors of the logo, there will be too much colors on the design, and it would also reduce the importance of the logo as well. So हमें ये चीज रखनी है माइंड में कि हम जो चीज डिजाइन करें, we use less colors, not too much for our subjects. You can say figma.com, and for logo we have to keep it special. Okay, we can also try changing font maybe. अच्छा, अभी तक हमने यहाँ पर font typography के ऊपर just हमने same font use किया है. How about we use some other font for this? Let's say this. This is official Figma's font they use on their websites as well. And if you use this without the drop shadow and the heavy setting and align it. Also, you can use keyboard shortcut for aligning, that is Alt key. You hold the Alt key, and if you want to align it horizontally, you press H. If you want to align it vertically, you press V. Okay. So what do you think, guys? Now, okay, अब ये किस तरह कैसे लग रहा है? The color of shapes are more highlighted than the logo. हाँ, color of shapes are more highlighted. So what do? We make it darker. We reduce both of these shades. Now, what do you think, guys? कि अब कैसा लग रहा है? आई थिंक लेट्स कीप इट टू दिस. ठीक है, हमने इन टोटल दो फॉन्ट्स यूज कर लिए. फॉर द मेन सब्जेक्ट हेडिंग वी हैव यूज्ड ABC White, and for the other subheadings we have used Inter. We can also add more information to the post by using, you can say we have added our image, our logo as well. और हम इसमें किस तरह की images add कर सकते हैं. Let's say we want to add an illustration. Let's see if we want to add this to the frame. I think it doesn't look good because it is creating too much contrast. Also, it is not fitting with the theme of our post, that is dark, and the image is light. अच्छा, एक ट्रिक है जो फिग्मा में अभी आई है, दैट इज द एआई. आप इससे क्या कर सकते हैं, अगर आपके पास कोई भी इमेज है, आप क्विकली बैकग्राउंड उसका रिमूव कर सकते हैं बाय क्लिकिंग ऑन टू दिस बटन दैट इज बिसाइड्स अ कमेंट. हियर यू गेट, अगर आप इमेज सेलेक्ट करेंगे, you get the option to remove the background, and with just some clicks you get your backgrounds removed. अगर अब देखें, it kind of is fitting up to our image. It is not standing out too much, but we can customize it even more because you can see the white background of this is still in here and it is creating too much contrast. What we can do is go to this section in the fill. If we click on the image button, we get these customization options. आप exposure reduce कर सकते हैं, can reduce the contrast as well, highlights reduce कर सकते हैं, or change the shadows. Let's try reducing the exposure and the highlights. It makes the image way too dark. और अगर हम shadows और highlights, shadows बढ़ा दें, it makes it too bright. What do you think guys, क्या ये image fit कर रही है हमारे post के साथ? All right, so yes, so the reason I chose this image to be placed on the right hand corner is we don't want to make it stand out more than the subject. हमारा subject है main focus में, that is checked. We have our subheadings that are second most important checked. We have our logo that is standing out checked. Shapes जो है हमारे पास subtle colors use किए मैंने background से जो contrast नहीं create कर रहे, that is also checked, and our image is also placed accordingly. Even though it is bright and visible enough, but it is not distracting with our figma.com. This is also checked. So this is our what our complete design looks like right now. And I would like to end the session here. Thank you all for joining. अगर किसी को questions हैं, they can ask in the comments. Grids for a website. Okay. If you are designing a website, first of all, you would need to create a frame that is for a desktop. or what you can use is for presentation. You can use a slide 16 by 9. You have both of these options. Both of these are used for designing websites. Now, how do you choose the right grid and alignment? See, for desktops, most of the screens you see are with a ratio of 16 by 9. They are more wider, but there are also screens that have a ratio of, you can say, 4 by 3. You get 16 by 9 and 4 by 3, and this is the difference between both of them. This is what a 16 by 9 screen looks like, and this is what a 4 by 3 screen looks like. This is more rectangular and this is more squarish. So when we are choosing grids, we have to choose in a manner that they would fit both of these screens. क्योंकि हम जब डिज़ाइन करेंगे, तो जो डेवलप होगी, जब लाइव होगी, हम ये नहीं चाहेंगे कि हम 16 बाय 9 पे डिज़ाइन करें। हम यहाँ कंटेंट ऐड कर दें, यहाँ ऐड कर दें, यहाँ ऐड कर दें, यहाँ ऐड कर दें। बट यही चीज़ अगर हम, जो यूज़र होगा हमारा, इस स्क्रीन पे व्यू करेगा, यू कैन सी the content is getting cut out. You can't see the content right here. So we choose grids that can fit both of these. You choose layout grids and then columns, and then you can choose a count to any number. Let's say 12. You have to check the margin to at least 100. When you keep the margin at 100, it adds this amount of bleed at the corners, and you make sure you do not add any content in there. This is a good practice when you are designing responsive websites. This way, the designer, you yourself, do not have to work a lot in order to fit these boxes onto another screen. Although you can still see the content is getting hidden, but this will come to responsive design when you change the sizes of this. You can see it also collapses the boxes together, so they can fit in different sizes. So the best practice is to use alignment grid with a bleed of 100 minimum. You can also increase it to 120. I personally use at 100 so the developer can easily implement it. And for the 1440 size of, if you're designing on 4 by 3, you do not have to add too much bleed. You can work fine with, let's say, 20 as well, or 40 as well. But if you're designing on 16 by 9, you make sure you add at least 100 bleed. So that's it for the alignment. Anyone else have questions? So as a web developer, we should do it by using Figma and by coding. अच्छा, जब भी कोई वेबसाइट या ऐप डेवलप होती है, you have to, if like the budget is obviously low, they wouldn't hire a designer. वो directly templates या ऐसे अगर वेबसाइट है तो bootstraps यूज करके डायरेक्टली डेवलप हो सकती हैं. That is also an option. But if बड़ी कंपनीज में या बड़े जो प्रोजेक्ट्स होते हैं, या अगर you have to be creative and make your website stand out, अगर आपको different बनाना है, you should use Figma first. क्योंकि अगर आप डायरेक्टली कोडिंग करने बैठेंगे, आपको सबसे पहले तो ये प्रॉब्लम फेस आएगी कि डिज़ाइन किस तरह से बनाएं. अगर आप इंस्पायरेशंस भी देखते हैं फ्रॉम द इंटरनेट, उसको इम्प्लीमेंट करना बहुत मुश्किल होगा, क्योंकि आप एक इमेज देख के उसको कोड नहीं कर सकते. बट अगर आप फिग्मा चलाते हैं, यू लर्न फिग्मा या यू हायर डिज़ाइनर जो कि आपको डिज़ाइन रेडी करके देता है, यू कैन सिंपली एक्सपोर्ट इट टू कोड. एंड हाउ यू कैन डू दैट इज बाय प्लगइन्स. बट इसके लिए डिटेल्ड मैंने अपनी लास्ट वर्कशॉप में सेशन रखा है. प्लगइन्स के थ्रू आप इजीली वेबसाइट हो या ऐप हो एक्सपोर्ट कर सकते हैं. वो आपको रिएक्ट में, HTML में या फ्लटर में आपको कोड एक्सपोर्ट मिल जाएगा. ठीक है, उस कोड से आप इजीली अपना डेवलप कर सकते हैं. यू जस्ट हैव टू एडजस्ट अ फ्यू थिंग्स एड्रेस यू थिंक यू हैव टू ऐड फंक्शनैलिटी. आपको उसमें फंक्शनैलिटीज ऐड करनी है, बैकएंड उसके साथ अटैच करना है, एंड इट वुड मेक your project a lot easier. So both of these are like useful, but they have to be used together in order to work out. JavaScript obviously yeah. JavaScript जो है आपको for example for buttons events आपको जिस तरह से करने हैं, functions आपको set करने हैं, you have to do it by yourself, but you will get say 90% of the front end you can get by the Figma. So I think I have addressed all the questions and I would end the session here. Thank you all for joining up. And Naba, can you continue?
Thank you so much, Sahil, for this amazing session, and also thank you all for actively participating. And as we wrap up this session, I would like to tell you all that our third session will be held next Saturday. So don't you forget to join. It is going to be amazing session for sure, because we will learn the basics of the principles of good and bad design, also responsiveness, and what mistakes we have to avoid as a UI designer. So don't miss out, and we will end this session here. Thank you everyone for joining. Allah Hafiz.
Hafiz.
Yeah,